I am just so excited to have you on the Self Love Lounge, Nanci Reed. I just read your book. I loved it. So many wonderful, amazing things that came out of it, both for myself and things I'll be using in my own practice with my clients. So I can't wait to hear from you and hear and share a little bit more of your story with our audience. So tell me all the things about you.
How much time do we have?
You know, I know. I gotta rephrase that because every time I say that, people are like, all the things, and I'm like, okay,
Like,
maybe not all
really?
the things.
Like, how far back do you want me to go? You want me to go back to childhood, to college, like everything. But no, it's so lovely to be here with you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm really excited about this interview and having you on today. Start with, something that really stood out for you. Being that this is the Self-Love Lounge, I think it's only fair that we talk about, the healing journey and finding self-love. So talk to me about
Mm.
your journey to healing and self-love and what that all looked like.
Yeah. Well, so the thing that I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot in this context is that if we don't look at our belief system
Mhm.
underlying our worthiness first, all the self love talk in the world is just that. It's just talk because there is this resistance that lives within us, a lot of times unconsciously too, right? And so it's not about denying what's there, but it is about looking at it from a different perspective and with a different lens, right? And so as you're looking to see all of the resistance that you have towards taking in those affirmations and those proclamations basically of love yourself first, all these things, right, that people say, and they have the very best intentions, so I'm not judging any of that. But what happens is that if you're at that place in your life where I've been, and probably you've been, and probably a lot of people that are listening to the show have been, where you are listening to all these amazing things and you're like, wow, that sounds cool. Oh, but that's not for me. I mean, they don't know my story. They don't know all the darkness, right, that's inside of me. They don't know all the reasons why I'm unlovable. And I do my best to hide that from everybody, but they don't know. They must be different than me. There must be something that they have that I don't. Or there must be something that they've been able to accomplish that's impossible for me, right? and
Right.
and these are these conversations that we have with ourselves. And what's amazing is that these conversations that are usually pretty unkind are
Mhm.
actually pretty easy to have with ourselves, right?
Mhm.
It's like very little effort to say to somebody, hey, where are all the ways that you don't measure up in your life?
Mhm.
And they'll immediately have a list, right?
Oh,
Or
yes.
how have you not checked off the boxes that the world has told you that you need to be successful, to be worthy? We have that list, no problem. But if I turn to you and I say, how are you amazing? What are all the ways that you have shined and are still shining and want to shine? There's a hesitation. There's
Mhm.
even like a dissociation from that question. Because what that means is not only looking within for those moments of shine, but also seeing those moments where we weren't shining,
Mm.
right? Because we
That's
have
real.
to see it all in order to heal it all. And so there's a different way of looking that I talk about, which is looking with kindness and curiosity as your guides,
Mhm.
rather than preconceived judgment or assumptions or comparisons or shaming or blaming. All these ways and these lenses that are actually pretty easy to access. But we don't really want to talk about that. So it wouldn't sell probably as many books or have as many, bumper stickers and different things if we talked about that when you look inside, you don't just see light.
Mm.
because you believe that the darkness is you,
Yeah.
right? And so you can't dispel that mistaken belief in darkness until you look at it all and you bring it to the light. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't bring the light into the darkness because that just makes everything more obscured. But if you have the light and then you bring those dark thoughts, or you bring those parts of you that you'd rather hit the edit button on, and everything else that everyone else has, and you actually bring it to the light of what you truly are, then that actually allows that darkness to be dispelled, not by denial, but by curiosity and kindness. And
Mm-hmm.
so we look at those moments and we go, gosh, so yeah, maybe that's not something I want to be plastering out into the world. And yet I did the best I could. If I
Mm-hmm.
could have done better, I would have. And so the only way that I'm going to be able to see the purpose in those experiences is if I fully look at them without denial and without judgment. And if I instead just see them almost like neutrally, like I would to a pantry, right? Where I was making a shopping list and I was going to go to the grocery store and I was like, okay, I need to look inside my pantry. I'm not going to blindly go to the store and guess the things that I'm missing and the things that I already have. I need to look, but I'm not going to look with judgment. Like when we look in our pantries and we open them up and we look inside, if we're at low on cereal, we don't usually go, oh, I'm such a horrible person. How could I have done this? Nobody would ever talk to me if they knew I ran out of cereal. That seems silly, right? And
Yeah.
yet, when we look at all the ways that we haven't measured up according to our own expectations or to those external to us, we do that exact thing. We go, oh, I'm such an awful person. Oh, how could I have done that? Oh, I'm horrible. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. And that's easy to do, right? Doesn't require a lot of effort. But if we would be able to look at the inventory of our own internal experience with the same detachment and the
Mm-hmm.
lack of judgment that we do when we're going to go make our grocery run, everything changes. And then we
Uh,
go, I wonder if I really want to keep that box. Maybe I want to try a different brand, right?
mm-hmm.
Maybe I read this article that they have put these things in there that are these hidden ingredients. Maybe I don't want that anymore. So maybe I'm going to try something different. But we don't usually go, you're a horrible person for picking that cereal, because that would just be kind of a little crazy. And we are able to, balance that out. And I say this with a total light heart because I know this journey. I know how tempting it is. I am so good at finding all the ways that I don't measure up. I am so good at finding all my flaws. I can point them out so easily. But for
Mm-hmm.
the longest time, I couldn't tell people, including myself,
Mm-hmm.
where I was amazing,
Mm-hmm.
where I wanted to celebrate myself, not from boasting or bragging, but from true celebration. And knowing that if I'm willing to celebrate me, then that other woman out there that's maybe been holding back, hiding in plain sight, dimming her light, maybe she'll go, wow, she showed up. Look at her. And look at her mess, and she's still there. She's shining. She's showing up with messy hair or with, whatever it is. And so maybe I can too. And
Yeah.
that's really what healing is for me. And that's been the journey.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, and I love how you talk about the messy, and I read that in the book too. You know, where's your mess? I think was your chapter. And
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the messy middle all the time because the reality is, we don't get to Dream Island without going through the messy middle, right? There's that part where we have
Mm-hmm.
to sit in our own stuff and sit in the emotions, face them, feel them, and forgive ourselves and show ourselves compassion and love. So, talk to me a little bit about your journey. I mean, obviously, you've done the work, you understand the work, you're here. So, talk to me a little bit about your messy middle and how you got through that.
Well, my messy middle tended to usually be around relationships, specifically with men. And I had this really brilliant plan that I never articulated outwardly, or that probably I didn't even really know consciously, which was that if I gave away my power of decision making
Mm.
to someone or something outside of me, I was off the hook for the outcome. And that's a hard pill to swallow to say that even today with all the love and all the whatever, but it's true. And I was addicted to giving away my power. I would
Mm.
even say that I needed a 12-step intervention for it because it was so easy for me to go into that place. It was so natural of me to be shining my light,
Mm.
living a life that was so aligned with me. And then some guy would come along and he would maybe have more letters after his name, more money in his bank account. Maybe he
Mm.
would just profusely, exude this influence. And all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, maybe he knows more than me. Oh, maybe I should listen to his ideas and not mine. Oh, well, he has a bigger job than me, according to the world. So maybe I shouldn't trust my intuition. Maybe I should ask him for his advice.
Mm.
Maybe I should give him all of my choices. you know, and I wouldn't do this immediately, but it would happen every single time. And so there got to be a point when I was like looking at all of these stories and realizing the only constant was me and how I was showing up or not showing up.
Mhm. I can relate to that.
And I mean, so many of us can, right? And that's just it. The more we talk about it, the more
Yeah.
we take the monster out of the closet, the more light that we can actually expose it to then, right?
For sure.
And I can own all of that without
Mhm.
guilt. That was the best that I knew how to do. It
Mhm.
was the way that I felt that I could get through this life, because being me, all of me as me, was way too painful. I always was highly empathic, highly intuitive. I knew things that I couldn't explain. I never read them in a book. I never was taught them, and yet I knew them. I could
Mm.
feel spaces, I could feel energy, I could feel people. So, what did I do was that all I wanted was to be normal. I didn't want to be different. I didn't want to stand out. I was really scared of that because I thought people would either call me a fraud or that they would think there was something, unkosher about the things that I knew. And it just wasn't a place of fitting in. And this
Mhm.
world is all about how do you fit in? Even though we say, oh, you're an individual, we don't really mean it. There's only like this certain little framework that we allow people to operate within. And then if
Mhm.
they deviate outside of that, then we call them weird or we call them eccentric or, different things, unless they have tons of money and influence. And then, oh, they're an influencer. Oh, they're unique. Oh, they're right. But when they don't fit in that box, and they don't have that influence or that power, we tend to judge them. And so I was already extremely judgmental of myself. And my biggest fear was to be seen for what I really was and have others not like me.
Mm.
And so I took those same abilities of being able to read energy and read people, and I used them in a way to become different versions of me, depending
Mhm.
on who was in front of me. So I was really good at being like, oh, me too. Yeah. Oh, you like that? Oh, yeah, me too. And I would somehow immediately learn everything about that subject matter, like with men, oh, I loved to water ski. I love to do, nope, didn't like to do any of that. And, oh, yeah, go down moguls full speed on a black diamond. Yes, that's what I like to do too. Oh, we should totally go do that together. Oh, yeah. Right. And I'd be
Yep.
terrified the entire time. Broke my ankle, did all these things, right? And it was all because I was so frightened of being able to be like, you know what I really like to do? I love to watch sunsets. I love to meditate. I love to journal. I'm actually really an introvert. I just look extroverted, but I'm not. I
Mm-hmm.
really need to recharge if I'm around people because I am so giving of my energy and I'm so open to feeling everything. And I didn't know then how to ground myself or to tell what was mine and what wasn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who I am. And I'm also the best friend you're ever going to know. And I will literally lie down in traffic for you if I believe in you and our relationship, right? I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do that. I just sort of hid in plain sight. I became whatever version of me was the least offensive to others. And if I ever did dabble into sharing a little bit of my truth, I was immediately met with some sort of judgment that reinforced me hiding again. And so I got to be the face of innocence, like A Course in Miracles says, right? I had my list of all the people that had wronged me in the world and all the ways that I had been mistreated. And I was adding to it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
never wanting to realize it was my own name that was really there, that it was by me not loving myself and
Mm-hmm.
actually hating myself that I allowed all of this unloving action and activity to be directed towards me. And I could do, certain things really well in my job or something like that. And when I had my own little bubble, but particularly if there was a domineering energy, whether it be male or female, but in relationships, it was male, I would definitely find myself retreating. And then I would also find myself holding on to this mistaken belief. Again, like I said, that if I gave away my power of decision, I was off the hook for the outcome. Therefore, I got to stay perfect. And I thought that if I could just be perfect, I'd be free of other people's judgments. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did everything to not only get the A, but get the A plus. And if I didn't get the A plus, there was something wrong with me. And, nobody put this pressure on me. It was me. And it was
Mm-hmm.
all stemming from this belief that being me as I was and am wasn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know so many people can relate to that for sure. That feeling of not being enough and feeling like they have to hide their truth to be seen and to be loved and to be validated, right? Um, perfectionism is certainly
I like that perfectionism. I'm going to use that. That's
perfectionism
great.
is, certainly an area we all strive to be the best, right? We want to be the best at everything by nature, right? And we have this
Yeah.
fear of failing, falling, screwing up, messing up, doing all the wrong things, which keeps us stuck in this place of like, oh my gosh, again, we're pulling ourselves into judgment and I'm not enough. So talk to me a little bit about your experience with perfectionism, how you worked through that, and how you suggest and help others through that today.
Well, so the thing with perfectionism, and really probably like anything that we want to kind of quote unquote overcome, is
Mm,
to realize it's not a war. We're not going to battle with this part of us.
mm,
We're actually allowing it to be as it is without judgment. And that lessens its hold and grip over us because we only would fight something that actually had power,
mm,
right? If something is just like a speck of dust, we don't let it ruin our day. We just go, oh, and flick it away. No big deal.
mhm,
But if there's a boulder in our path, then we go, what am I going to do? Right. So then, well, okay, I better get other people, reinforcements. I better push. I better, strengthen myself, like all these things. Right. But if it's just a little thing of dust, we just go, oh, that's it. No big deal. I'll just
mhm,
keep going my way. Right. And that's the same thing is that it's not like you're curing yourself of something. It's
mhm,
always there. You just choose differently. But until you're aware that you have a choice, you can't make a different decision, right? So
yes,
you're letting yourself see all the time that, oh, do I want to choose perfectionism here? Something that's actually impossible? Or do I instead want to embrace, like I like to say, being perfectly imperfect, which
yes.
is that again, being my authentic, real, perfectly imperfect self is a reminder for anyone else to see that if it's possible for me, it's possible for them too. And then
Mhm.
it doesn't become about me as much, right? It's more about that I'm making these choices, not just for me, but for the overall. And so that's actually real power. That's real influence
Mhm.
versus going to war with this thing that really is just a speck and you've given it the personification of something massive that is only just a teeny tiny infinitesimal influence, right?
Mhm.
And so you allow it to be as it is. And here's the real shift that I've come to know. When you express gratitude to the very thing that you think is the thing keeping you from living a good life or a better life or a successful life, that transforms everything. So when I can look at my perfectionism and I can go, oh, well, thank you. Thank you for showing up because I know your purpose in showing up is you think you're protecting me. You
Mhm.
think you're saving me from from these choices that are imperfect. You think you're saving me from this judgment that surely is going to come from others or myself. So thank you. Thank you for having that intention. And at the same time, I have a different approach that I'm using. So thank you. You can just do what you're going to do. You don't need to be different. Just perfectionism on. But I have another option and it's always available to me and I'm going to be choosing that. But thank you and mean it. Don't be, sarcastic about it or anything. Like fully be intentional with that gratitude. And now you have transformed that very thing that looked like it was the basically block to your success as actually being a part of it and not a part from it.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, and it's so true because, to your point, everything that we work through are they're parts of us, right? And they are always
Mm-hmm.
with us. We learn how to work through them versus letting them control and manage us. So
Yes.
it's no different than any of these different skill sets that we work to strive for to be better or to overcome and to help us. A lot of my clients have a very hard time setting boundaries, right? Because it's like, oh gosh, setting boundaries is mean and it makes me selfish and it's bad. And it's just how we choose to look at it. It's not so
Mm-hmm.
much the action we're taking. Because actually, if boundaries are used in the right way, they're very healthy and they're very good,
Absolutely.
right? So I know another thing, and I was, going back to your book, is you talk about really being able to shift mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
again, going from that place of judgment to compassion and curiosity. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Let's share that with the listeners.
Well, so again, you can't make a different choice unless you know it's available to you, right?
Mm,
So you want to look at what am I leading my mindset with at present
mhm.
and not judge it. And especially if it reveals that you're leading with judgment, don't judge the judgment.
That's
Like
right.
be curious about it, be gentle about it, and be forgiving about it too, right? Because
Mhm,
again, it's doing its job in a way that it feels has purpose, that is actually trying to help you. So even if it's not the outcome that you would like, you need to look at the intention first and
mhm,
then, without judgment, choose differently, right? And
mhm,
so everything that you're experiencing that seems to be outside of you, that's going to keep changing. It always will. That's just the nature of this world is the only constancy is change, right?
mhm,
Nothing is eternal here. Even if something has lasted for millennia, it still eventually had a beginning and it will have an ending. That is true.
mhm,
But the truth that is you, that's eternal. And that is not dependent on anything external unless you choose to believe it is. And so when you again regain that autonomy without judgment, that I like to call gentle agency over your experiences, that is when your mindset can gently shift. And it doesn't have to be this huge turn, it can be little tiny pivots. And you can see profound impact from the smallest shifts.
Mm. I have a feeling some listeners are like, yeah, that's all fine and great, Nancy. But when my head is spinning at 2 in the morning for like 4 hours and I'm like trying to be like gentle, and it doesn't quite work.
And they'd be right. They'd be absolutely right. And see, here's the thing. What is working? Like, how do you define what working is? So, if you're saying working is the opposite of what you're experiencing right now, ask yourself, is that coming from curiosity or from judgment? Are
Mm,
you somehow limiting the response by trying to manage it? See? And that
mm,
only comes from a place of fear and a lack of trust. And again, there's no judgment there, but it's true. So if you're feeling like there's only one outcome that is going to be a sign of you being successful, you might be missing all of those in between moments that
mm.
actually are there because you're not looking for them.
I
And
love
so
that.
they're invisible to you.
That makes me think of, when we expect our lives to look a certain way and then it doesn't, and we fall
Mm-hmm.
apart because we think, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
I failed, my life is over, there's nothing to do now. When you said that, that's where I went. That's what I thought. Um, and I think it's a matter of pivoting and reshaping the way we think about how our life is supposed to be. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that's why instead of calling things detours in life, I call them purposeful redirections because it is always about purpose. So, what is this for? Right? My mentor used to say that was the only question that had any value was to ask yourself, what is this for? So, is it to reinforce a belief system in separation or in negation or in unkindness or judgment? Or is it to reinforce possibilities and
Mm,
curiosity and kindness and gentleness, right? And we can always change the purpose. And that is the only way that we actually can see a change in effect is we
mm.
have to go back to the level of cause. If we're just focusing on the effects and trying to make them different and yet we haven't looked at the cause level, not much is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to be able to revisit our intentions, right? Because as we grow and evolve, the things we want change and develop. So I think it's okay to have that redirection in our life because obviously it's there for a reason. And so sometimes just being able to allow ourselves to kind of lean into that can really be the healthiest thing we can do for ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not denying, right? There's a
Yeah.
real difference between that. We're not bypassing, we're not glossing over and being like, "Oh, I stubbed my toe. Oh, but there's a reason for that, so I'm going to be happy about it." Not that at all. it's that it's that if you were able to stub your toe and not judge yourself for doing that, then that's another response
Mhm.
that accumulates in that overall experience of not judging, right? So it's not that stubbing the toe, it's how you interpreted stubbing the toe.
Mm, yes. And then we're going back to shifting our mindset and the way we choose to think about things. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring up another really important concept in the book, which I talk about a lot. And I love how you phrase it, but I talk a lot in my practice about having really good self-care and how self-care isn't selfish. It's really important and a responsibility we have to ourselves. And it's how we are able to show up as our best selves. You refer to this as vitamin me, which I love. And I would love for you to talk more about. I
So yeah, we get our daily dose, right?
love it. I
and
love
and we all have our supplement list, and I mean, I take my this and my thing for this, for helping this and minimizing this and all these other things. But where does that love for
it.
ourself come in that daily dose,
Yeah.
right? And can we choose it with the same sort of dedication and
Mhm.
mindfulness that we do our daily vitamins and supplements? And also, can we then allow it to take a part of our day so that it's a gentle reminder, no judgments, but just a reminder of, oh, that's right. I'm worthy. I'm worthy of that time. I'm worthy of that intention. I'm worthy, even if all I have is like 2 or 3 minutes a day, which everybody has that, right? Everyone has 2 or 3 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Even if you have to do it while you're in the bathroom, you have 2 to 3 minutes a day. That is yours.
Mhm.
So, what do you want to fill it with?
That's
What do
right.
you want to make sure that you have fulfilled by the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, then it's like, oh, yeah. And then it just becomes part of your experience.
Yeah.
And it's just another thing that you're doing, but it's really not just about the doing of it, it's the being. And it's the being energy of coming from a place of worthiness rather than questioning your worthiness.
Mm. That's hard to do when you don't have any worthiness,
Mm-hmm.
being able
Or
to,
that I would say that it's not that you don't have it, it's that you don't believe you have it,
right. Yes.
right?
100%. Absolutely.
Because we
So,
we all come in with this inherent worthiness.
yes. Yes. 100%. Um, but I think it is, to your point, really important to invest in ourselves and to pour into our own cup first. And I say that all the times, I have to pour into my own cup, and then I have so much more to give that way.
Exactly. And that's like where you can shift that idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy, which a lot of people say, oh, that's a negative. But
Mm.
instead, if you think about that, you are fulfilling yourself, and that is something that you are making happen by
Mhm.
intention and not
Yes.
just by, a hoping.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it is. It's a practice, right? It's something you have to practice and commit to yourself. Just like going to the gym or,
Right.
doing these things that we look at as important in our lives for our own health and
And
well-being.
see,
This is that too.
your inner critic and your ego, right? Like according to A Course in Miracles, is going to want to say, "Oh, look at that! You said you were going to practice that vitamin me, and you didn't do it. You suck. See, told you you weren't worthy. You couldn't even handle it for one day, right? 3 days, whatever it was." So then you got to look at that and you go, oh, well, yeah, if I was going for perfect, you'd be right. But perfect doesn't exist. And I'm showing up as my perfectly imperfect self. And so guess what? I succeeded.
Yes, I
And you
love
had, and
that.
you,
Yes.
and you mean that with the most loving place within you. And it changes everything.
Oh, so beautiful. You talk about, and there's real life, my cell phone going off. Sorry, everyone.
Perfectly
Perfectly imperfect. There it is.
imperfect.
Sorry about that. You talk about notice the no's. Why is that important?
Well, so again, you're noticing them, not judging them, right?
Mm,
Because there's a temptation in a lot of new age and self help and everything else to be like, I just won't see the no's in life. I'll just overlook them. I'll just bypass them. Somebody says no to me and I'll just be like, what? No, that's a yes. But no, it's not. It's a no. so so rather than trying to keep on opening a locked door, why not instead go, oh, huh, Well, I wonder what the purpose of the locked door is right now in my life. Maybe it's actually saving me from what's on the other side instead of inhibiting me. So again, what is the purpose of it? Oh, well, rather than keep on trying
Mm.
to open a locked door with the wrong key, why don't I see what this key is and go, I wonder what door this does unlock? And then shift my perspective. Maybe it's a door that actually I get to build, right? Maybe it's
Ooh.
a door that I get to enroll others in building with me, and I have the key. But if all I focus on is how this key won't work on the door that I believe is meant for me to go through, I'll
Mm.
miss every other opportunity. And I'll see myself as a failure rather than as a catalyst for possibilities.
I love that. I love that. Can you text that to me every morning?
Yes, I will do that. Sign up for pocket coaching with Nanci. And
I feel like I need like that little sprinkle every morning, that reminder, right? Okay, if this door isn't opening, don't keep trying to open it. Go to the next
True.
door.
Yes, yes.
Like,
And build one if it's not there,
and build
right?
one if it's not there, which is kind of what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of,
Mm-hmm.
as entrepreneurs, we do that. We say, okay, what isn't available and how can I create
Mm-hmm.
this?
That's right.
Um, you refer to Alice in Wonderland a lot. And listen, I know the story. I got to tell you, it actually, that the Alice in Wonderland, for some reason as a child, scared me. There was something
Oh,
about the
interesting.
vision there, or like the pictures and the graphics and like some of the different things
Mm-hmm.
that, the pop out of the cat and different things that kind of rattled me a little bit. But you love it, and I love your depiction of the story and how it helped you in your own healing and transformation. So tell us a little bit about the relevance and the importance of Alice in Wonderland, that story in your life.
Well, so as a child, it was just very appealing to me to imagine that you could be transported to these other realms,
Mm,
and yet you would still know that you were safe at home, right? Even though you have all these other experiences. And that's ultimately what she realizes. As an adult, I can really see one of the most powerful messages in it is that all the time Alice is in Wonderland, she's trying to change it. She's trying to make it make sense. She's trying to
mhm,
make it fit her experience in her life. And so she's like, well, I don't want to be around mad people. I don't want nonsense. I don't want all this stuff. And basically, so many times the other characters in the story are telling her, but this is what happens here in Wonderland. This
right.
is what Wonderland is, right? So again, instead of trying to turn that locked door, create a new door, right? But
Yeah.
the creating a new door is to recognize that if it was by going to sleep that she experienced this experience,
Hmm.
only by awakening would she undo that belief and that decision to go to sleep and experience this, right? So it puts you in that place of an empowered decision maker. It also puts you into that gentle agency. So once she stopped trying to make Wonderland be different and instead realized, oh, this is my dream. I I can see myself over there through the mirror. I'm not here. I'm there. And I'm just sleeping. And so if I want to get out of here, if I want to have things be different, the only thing I can do is to wake up. But
Ooh.
to, undo that decision to go to sleep. And again, that goes back to the idea of going to the cause rather than trying to make the effects different without looking at the cause in our life. And so if we can't identify the decision of intention that got us to where we are right now, and we just keep on trying to change the outcome and we try to change the players, basically in it, but we don't look at the mindset that conceived the experience itself, nothing
Mm.
will ever change.
So true. I love that. Yeah, you got something much different out of that than I
But
did.
it can't be scary. I could see that, how it would be scary. I mean, there's monsters, there's people losing their heads. I probably was just desensitized because my dad told me stories about, people losing their heads when they made a mistake, and like these invention stories. And yeah, so everyone's going to have a different experience. But as an adult, I really see it as a reminder of looking at cause versus effect and how we can approach our decisions.
Oh, no, I love that. And I love that you shared that. It's beautiful. It's funny. Like now I feel like I need to go back and watch it so that I can see it under your lens versus mine. Oh, that's great. So tell us a little bit about the work you do. I'm part of your circle on Facebook. I absolutely love it. It's so inspiring and bright and beautiful and such a wonderful offering. But I would love to, share with my listeners a little bit more about you, the work you do, and how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So, what I offer as a heart guided clarity and alignment mentor is to really meet you where you are in your life, just like we were talking about, that there's no denial and yet there's total vision. And so, we're looking at all of you as being you, but without judgment and with gentleness and with curiosity. And that sort of is the foundation for the community that you're referring to called Sparkle Circle that I have, which is for heart centered, empathic, sensitive, intuitive women to come together and to connect and collaborate in a judgment free zone and
Important.
where kindness is the common thread, right? And I call it deliberate kindness. There's nothing random about it. We are very intentional in our extension and expansion of that. And so within that, that is a community that I offer to anyone that resonates with that message, right?
Mhm.
Then people can also work with me individually if they're wanting to experience more of a mentorship
Mhm.
where we can look at things on the level of the mind, body, and spirit based on the different modalities that I have as my expertise. And so nothing I do is cookie cutter. Everything is custom, everything is personalized. And so, really, it's all underneath this umbrella of a program that I've created called Share My Shine Now. And
Mhm.
so, that is one on one mentorship with me and you as we explore really where you want to feel aligned and receive clarity in your life. And so, whether it be that you want to move differently physically, or emotionally, or spiritually, we can address that or all three in our sessions together. And I do this within either a 3 or 6 month container, depending on what the individual is really wanting to receive and what I intuitively also know is going to be the most supportive and helpful too. And then together we craft your dream, but we experience it on the level of valuing yourself as already having received it and manifested it, right? So that's
Mhm.
where this idea of quantum manifestation comes in. So that there's a part of you that is experiencing something now. And then there's this other part of you that's aligning with that version of you that is you, that I call the quantum elder self. And so she's already living that experience as her reality, right? So this thing that you think is so far out of reach, she's already there. And so you get to connect with her and integrate with her through some processes that I have designed so that everything you're doing now, you're in alignment with that certainty that you arrived at the
Mhm.
destination that is the most supportive and the most loving and the most helpful to you in your specific journey. And so, that's kind of like a broad overview of the experience, but basically, it is to remind you of your own gentle agency, of
Mhm.
having that awareness that you are the miracle that you've been seeking, and that you are the catalyst, the gentle catalyst, without judgment, for that perfectly imperfect, sustainable happiness. To be
Mhm.
something that is sourced from within you by you being the same you no matter what is happening outside of you.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's so nice. So, if people are interested in working with you or joining your group, where can they find you?
So they can find me a lot of places, but they can go to my main website at nancireed.com, and that's NanciReed. They can also find me on Facebook. Either they can send me a friend request and mention this podcast, so I'll say yes. And they can also find me under Sparkle Circle. They can go to 32, the number 32 favors, which is a whole other thing we didn't talk about, but that's deliberate kindness. And they can do 32favors.com, and those will have like my VIP links that will give them all the ways to contact me, the different ways to work with me, as well as link them to my books and to different podcast and press, recordings and everything like that as well. They also can find out more about my work with the spiritual thought system that I study and teach called A Course in Miracles, and that I offer weekly classes on that through the Clubhouse audio app as well. And there's
Okay.
recordings that they can opt into for that. So a lot of different ways. They can find me in the Instaverse. They can find me
Yay.
on LinkedIn. Just come say hi.
And congratulations on your newest book.
Thank you.
So
Yes, Deliberate
exciting.
Kindness Project.
Yeah, and I'll make a link to that in the notes too, so people can find that as well as your book, which I absolutely love, Happily Ever Now. We definitely got to post
Thank
that in
you.
there as well. But yeah, congratulations on all your success. So I always like to, at the end, tell people a little bit more about your favorite things. So tell us a little bit about some of your favorite things, your favorite book, your favorite quote, anything you'd like to share.
So, my favorite book overall would be A Course in Miracles. And to, even though it's also a spiritual thought system, the book that accompanies it is definitely my favorite book. And the fact that I can go back to it anytime, and that it's not like a thing you just read cover to cover. It's an experience and a lifetime commitment, if that aligns for you. The more probably popular book that people are familiar with would be either The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, or also The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Ooh.
And kind of the same idea, both of them are about reconnecting with that real version of you in so many different ways. And so their approaches might differ in form, but the content and the intention is very, very, very similar.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I've Untethered Soul is definitely on my shelf, and I love that one. But I haven't heard of The Artist's Way, so I'll have to look into that one.
Oh, you would love The Artist's Way. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yes. And it is something that you can repeat again and again and again, and you will have a totally different experience each time you do it, depending on where you are in your life. So it is brilliant for sure. And as
Okay.
far as a quote, I
Yeah.
would say that the one from Alice in Wonderland that I talk about, that sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast.
Wow.
And it really is that when you take perfection off the table, everything else is available to you and accessible if you believe you're worthy to receive it.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing today and sharing your story, sharing your work, and for all that you do every day to better the lives of all of us in this community and in the world for that matter. So thank you.
Thank you. This was delightful.
Yes, it was. It was beautiful. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for being here today and sharing this time with us. I look forward to another special episode next Thursday. And until then, always remember, I love you to the moon and back. Bye for now.